channel.
Good morning, I'm Darren Grimes alongside the beautiful Emma Webb, and we're standing in for Ellie and Pete this morning on Saturday Morning Live.
It's great to have your company this morning, and do we have an action-packed show for you? We have all the day's top stories with our panel, the fallout from the Rochdale by-election and Rishi's speech last night. Is democracy under threat? All that and more with former Special Advisor to Michael Gove, Charlie Rowley and broadcaster Esther Stanhope.
And a new generation of drivers are deciding to ditch the manual gearbox altogether. Is this the answer to safer drivers of the future? We're sitting down with a former racing driver to find out the very first stig as well. And do you recognise these fellas?
If you are wise, you'll listen to me.
Well, that's what 850 ticket holders thought they were signing up for when they bought the 35 quid golden ticket to Willie's Chocolate Experience in Glasgow.
In reality, it was more like a first-class ticket to hell, or as some pundits called it, where dreams go to die. We'll be sitting down with the actors from the experience, Willy Wonka and the Oompa Loompa, and the unknown. You won't want to miss it. That's all at 11:45.
And don't forget, we want to hear from you. Much more important than us. Email us at gbviews@gbnews.com.
But before we do anything else, Sam Francis has all your news headlines.
Good morning from the GB newsroom. It's just gone 10 o'clock and we start with our top story of the morning, that pro-Palestine protests are set to continue over the course of this weekend, following the Prime Minister's warning last night that extremists are trying to undermine British democracy. In that impassioned speech delivered outside Number 10 last night, he called for the nation to unite and warned that Islamist extremists and far-right groups are spreading poison and, he said, trying to tear us apart. It followed George Galloway's win in Rochdale's by-election, which Rishi Sunak described as beyond alarming.
The Rochdale by-election returned a candidate who dismisses the horror of what happened on October the 7th, who glorifies Hezbollah and is endorsed by Nick Griffin, the racist former leader of the BNP. I need to speak to you all this evening because this situation has gone on long enough and demands a response not just from government, but from all of us.
In response to Rishi Sunak's statement last night, opposition parties have given mixed reactions, with the Liberal Democrats accusing him of sowing seeds of division. However, the Labour leader, Sir Keir Starmer, said Rishi Sunak is right to call for the country to unite and to condemn what he called unacceptable and intimidating behaviour. The new MP for Rochdale, George Galloway, who's also a former presenter for Iranian state TV, said that the Prime Minister was playing a very dangerous game that could drive young Muslims onto the rocks of extremism.
It's worse than a lie. It's dangerous. Because, you see, if you're saying to Muslims who vote that your vote will be delegitimised if you cast it the wrong way, and if you go out on a demonstration peacefully to demonstrate, then you'll be called a terrorist, and new laws, new police approaches will be conjured forth against you. If you do that, you are driving people away from the path of democracy and peaceful democratic protest.
Organisers of this weekend's protests have responded to the Prime Minister's warning of stronger action by police, suggesting that he reconsider the divisive positions of some of his fellow MPs. It's after Rishi Sunak pledged last night to support the robust policing of demonstrations, particularly pro-Palestinian marches. The Met Police have in the past said that showing support for a terror group is, they say, a criminal offence, adding that the right to protest does come with a responsibility to act within the law. Several local marches are planned today and tomorrow before another national demonstration in London on the 9th of March. In the US, President Biden has said that he hopes to see a ceasefire agreement between Israel and Hamas before the start of Ramadan coming up on the 10th of March. It comes as the US announced plans for a military airdrop of food and supplies into Gaza to tackle the growing humanitarian crisis there. Well, the United Nations is also warning that around 25% of the population of Gaza, that's more than 500,000 people, are on the brink of famine. Back here in the UK, a manhunt is now underway after 3 people were injured last night in a shooting in an area of London that's popular with bars and restaurants. The shots were fired by assailants on a moped as they were being pursued by police in Clapham in South London. That was at around 5 o'clock last night. 2 people, we understand, suffered gunshot pellet injuries as they were drinking at a nearby pub, and a 3rd person was also injured by the moped itself. Police say the injuries, though, are not life-threatening. Detectives are now trying to trace that moped and the suspects after they fled the scene. The retirement of 30 Typhoon jets that were used to protect British skies from potential attacks has been likened to scrapping Spitfires before the Battle of Britain. RAF bosses are trying to ground the fleet in an effort to save a reported £300 million. That's despite only completing 40% of their predicted flying hours. It comes as the Defence Secretary, Grant Shapps, urges the Chancellor to increase military spending to 2.5% of GDP, something, though, that Jeremy Hunt says won't be in next week's budget. Military historian and defence analyst Chris Newton told GB News this morning that the jets should, he says, be kept in service.
It does send the wrong message with regards to Russia and our willingness. If we can't spend this money on an operational reserve, it doesn't send a good message to Russia and about our resolve and our willingness to deter major conflict.
Those are the headlines for now. I'll be back in the next hour. In the meantime, you can sign up to all of the latest news alerts by scanning the QR code on your screen. Or if you're listening on radio, go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Welcome to Saturday Morning Live. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has claimed that democracy is under threat from extremism in the wake of Hamas's October the 7th attack on Israel.
In a speech to the nation, he also said that there are forces here at home trying to tear us apart. Take a listen.
I fear that our great achievement in building the world's most successful multi-ethnic, multi-faith democracy is being deliberately undermined. There are forces here at home trying to tear us apart. On too many occasions recently, our streets have been hijacked by small groups who are hostile to our values and have no respect for our democratic traditions. Threats of violence and intimidation are alien to our way of doing things. They must be resisted at all times.
Now, to react to this, we're joined by former Labour MP Stephen Pound. Stephen, thank you, as ever, for your company, my marvellous friend. Now, on the front page of the I newspaper this morning, Sir Keir Starmer, it says, has issued a grovelling apology to his parliamentary party after George Galloway obviously stormed home in that Rochdale by-election. Are you worried about the fact that Galloway has done so well?
Well, I mean, let's get a couple of things straight. George Galloway, or Shalloway as we used to call him, because, you know, he's got this sort of boiling bombast, but underneath it there's not a great deal. He's tried in Rochdale to start talking about, you know, local council elections and threatening Simon Danchuk with prison, apparently, you know. But really and truly, you know, he's a one-trick pony. He's also a George Galloway tribute act now. I mean, he's using those same old ridiculous tropes about, you know, 2 cheeks of the same backside that he was using 25 years ago. Look, the point is, the more attention that we give George Galloway, the more it inflates that preening ego. But the key questions we have to ask, firstly, Keir's absolutely right in 2 ways. One, to admit that the Labour Party contributed to what happened in Rochdale, no question about that. We and the Greens both actually chose candidates that we then had to withdraw our support from. The second thing is, Keir is utterly correct in offering his support to the Prime Minister at this particular time. I think the problem is that if you look at the Times headline today, it actually talks about Rishi implores, and it sounds as though he was weak and he was begging the people. He needs to be a bit stronger about that. The question we really need to ask is the existential question is this just about Gaza? Or is there now a fundamental disconnect between the people and Parliament that actually implies something far more sinister and far more existentially threatening to this country? So is it just about Gaza, or is there more to it than that? Those are the real key questions. And the final one is MPs are being threatened in their constituency offices and in their homes. Does rigorous, robust policing exacerbate the situation, or does it diffuse the situation? And that's the one that we need to actually tease out. We need to analyse, we need to drill down into the implications of it.
Stephen, there have been quite mixed responses to Rishi Sunak's speech. Some people who think that he's actually been quite robust, and other people who think that he hasn't been strong enough, particularly in focusing very much on extremist threats from the far right. What do you think is actually at stake here, with respect to his saying that our democracy is at risk? Do you think that this is the beginning of sectarian democratic politics in the UK?
There's always been a temptation to do that. I mean, you can go very, very sort of deep into the dark, poisoned well of sectarian hatred. And people have done it for years in this country. You know, we've seen it, principally from the far right. We've also seen it from people, in the world of Islamic extremism. But by and large, the British people are sort of, fairly sensible when it comes to it. And I think, don't forget, George Galloway, he will ultimately be defeated, not at the polls, although he tends to get elected for places and then disappear. But he'll become slightly a figure of fun. I mean, that ridiculous hat. He's the first political leader since Anthony Eden to make the fedora hat, his trademark. And there's a certain silliness about the man, but that doesn't disguise the poison that actually exudes from him. So, look, the key phrase, I think, that Rishi Sunak used, he said, the police must police the demonstrations, not manage the demonstrations.
Okay.
At the moment, facilitating. So, after you, Cecil, after you, Claude. I mean, the reality is the police, when they actually see people beaming anti-Semitic tropes, anti-Israeli tropes, pro-genocidal tropes onto the Elizabeth Tower in the House of Commons, why are they standing back and saying, that's a nice bit of light show? It simply is on.
Indeed.
We asked the police to do a lot. In this particular case, we asked them to do something fairly basic: police the demonstrations, not facilitate them.
Absolutely. I'm sure many are in complete agreement with you, Stephen. That's Stephen Pound there, former Labour MP. Now, in the studio, we're delighted to be joined by the former Special Advisor to Michael Gove, Charlie Rowley, and broadcaster Esther Stanhope. Esther, hello.
Good morning.
We were talking just outside about George Galloway's oratory and just how powerful it is. Now, whether or not you agree with the man's politics, his delivery and persuasiveness is pretty extraordinary, is it not?
He's got those piercing blue eyes. You remember his exact speech about Tony Blair? Tony Blair, Tony Blair. And then I heard yesterday on the radio, Keir Starmer, so it's almost like he's using the same phraseology, if you like. Yeah. All he's done is swap the name around. Look, he was the Respect Party head because I'm from Tower Hamlets, that's where I live, and he had a massive following in Tower Hamlets when he decided to launch the Respect Party, and he had a big song and a dance, and he's a big character. He has got a big ego, and then he went on Big Brother and licked up a saucer of milk with Rula Lenska. Yes. So that's the kind of guy we're talking about. He is good at speaking and he's got charisma, but I'm not sure if I believe everything he says.
Charlie, do you think the Labour Party were right to apologise for what happened in Rochdale? Because George Galloway's been accused of targeting the Muslim vote and essentially exploiting that to win by focusing on Gaza. Do you think that the Labour Party actually do have something to answer for in him winning on an almost on sectarian basis?
Well, I must say, that was an uncanny likeness. I thought it was almost as if he was sat next to me for a second. I got slightly worried.
Charlie. Charlie Rowley.
I won't sleep tonight. But in answer to your question, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, it was a disaster for the Labour Party right from the off. They selected a candidate that clearly articulated anti-Semitic views. Which was absolutely right, therefore, the Labour Party ditched him. They took far too long to ditch him, to withdraw support, meaning that his name is still on the ballot paper and allowed people of Rochdale, the good people of Rochdale, to still have the opportunity to vote for him. I mean, it was a disaster for the Labour Party in terms of their selection, the election, the process in which they had in place. And so I think it's absolutely right that Sir Keir Starmer apologised in that regard. And they have let in, I'm afraid, someone who does have these extreme views that will, because of his election leaflets that were out there, so his mandate is effectively now to stand up in the House of Commons day after day, week after week, to attack Sir Keir Starmer, because that's what he wants to do. He wants revenge of the Labour Party as a former Labour MP. But he wants to put the issue of Gaza at the heart of British democracy. He's not interested in schools, hospitals, the economy, anything like that. All his election literature was vote for George Galloway is a vote for Gaza, and that's all he's going to be doing. And it is going to stoke tension, it's going to stoke division, it's going to stoke more fear at a time where we need to diffuse those tensions, find a solution and get a resolution.
Well, in his speech, he said this is for Gaza, didn't he? And you just sort of think, well, what about Rochdale?
Yeah.
No. Do you think this is a fluke, then, for the Labour Party, or do you think, actually, come the general election, Mr Galloway could find himself re-elected?
Who knows? I mean, the thing about crystal balls is that we can always make a plan and we can always predict, and then we can say, oh, no, that didn't happen.
But it was quite a healthy
Of course it
majority,
could.
wasn't it?
Of course it could happen. Look, I mean, look at politics. I mean, everybody's in trouble. We don't know what's going to happen. The world is at war. I wish we had world peace. Why can't somebody stand up and say, world peace, please?
Well, he's planning on standing a number of candidates across the country and also supporting independent candidates. Does that make you worried?
It makes me worried. It should make everybody worried, I think, but no more so than if you're a Labour MP, because if you are a Labour MP with a heavy populated Muslim population, where they do obviously feel the issue of Gaza and what's going on in Palestine and Israel, it is something that is front and centre of the minds of those people in those particular communities. They may shift their support from what would be traditional Labour heartlands and traditional Labour MPs to either independents or other people that George Galloway is putting forward. So I would be worried if I were them. All I would say about George Galloway is that I think he's stood 3 or 4 times now in by-elections and been successful, but has never been able to hold the seat. So you would expect in normal times, if ever normal politics resumes at any point in the coming months when there's a general election, you would expect that seat to probably go back to Labour, but we'll just have to wait and see.
So let's talk about this equality story in the Telegraph. Equality policies discriminate against men, say half of Britons. This is a global survey that has found that the myth that every man is a villain and all females are invariably virtuous, said one Tory MP. Do you think that equality policies discriminate against men?
Look, I mean, I've grown up basically in a household that's surrounded by women, so I can tell you they're not virtuous at all. They are absolutely not, they're a disgrace. but being more serious about it, I mean, look, I was always brought up, though, to, hold a door open for, a woman to give up your seat on the bus. You do things, you're a gentleman, you do all these things. Which I think has now been taken as a sort of, with, the rise of sort of feminism and everything, you are quite unsure now whether you're going to offend somebody for doing something that's quite nice and polite, or whether you're going to just be that sort of, gentleman that, in those traditional way in which, in the way in which that I was sort of brought up. So I think, look, there is obviously a case to answer, because you're seeing whether it's violence against women and girls, it is clearly, obviously, men that are the perpetrators. Women are always more often the victims. So, of course, you have to have education in schools. Of course, you have to have all of the training in place to make sure that there is balance and equality in the job, in the workplace, in schools, between men and women.
Right.
But when it comes to general society and when it comes to equality and things, I think it might have gone... we're 2024 now. I think everybody knows that there's that sort of...
Yeah, because, Esther, I get into all sorts of hot water because I say things like love and pet... and it's just what I was brought up to say.
And that's just to me.
And that's just I wouldn't mind you calling me pet.
Well, some people are really offended by that, and
yes,
a lot of men today do feel quite uncertain about how they can actually approach women. And actually, if you look at the studies, a lot of men are simply not dating women in this day and age, and that's because I think they have a fear of saying and doing the wrong thing. Have we actually gone too far the other way, where actually we're creating a generation of timid little pussycats?
Well, I absolutely think not. I think that I'm totally pro-equality. It's International Women's Day next week, Friday the 8th of March. I'm actually speaking at 9 events next week to celebrate women and equality. And I think it is time for people to take it seriously. I mean, women have been the kind of weaker sex or not investing in money for so many years, and men seem to be the people taking control. It's like the old ties network. If you look at boardrooms around the world and in most big FTSE 100 companies, it's mainly men. And we do need more equality because you need people with different drivers that are making decisions. That's maybe why we're having so many wars. If there were more women in charge, maybe there wouldn't be so many people killing each other.
What about jobs, for example, discriminating against men because of diversity and equality quotas? Is that not sexist against men?
Well, you're absolutely right, and I think it's a disgrace that the Labour Party haven't had a single female leader versus the Conservative Party. I'm sure that's the point you were hoping I would make.
Yes.
Yes. Off message.
But it's true. But if you take, taking a slight step back, but if you take, the political parties, the Conservative Party has had 3 female prime ministers. But not through quotas, but because they were talented women, individuals. OK, Liz got into a bit of trouble and all the rest.
A little bit.
Had a bit of a sticky time with Brexit, but they rose to the top because of their talents, because of the opportunities that were there. That should be an example for the boardroom. It should be an example to schools. It shouldn't be this tick-boxing exercise. People should be in the jobs. It should be meritocracy.
Yes.
People should be there on merit, as I think everybody would want, including women. They wouldn't want just to be sort of put into position just because they're a woman.
However, you do need to encourage women to go for jobs because women are less likely to go for certain jobs just because they might not think they're good enough. So I think there needs to be a drive. I think there should be targets. I think if you don't drive towards something, you don't get there. So if you just leave everything and say, oh, yeah, it's meritocracy, there wouldn't be any changes.
Righto, perfect. Thank you very much, Esther and Charlie. Now, they're 2 fantastic people who will be back later on in the show.
Coming up, it is the death of the manual car. Out with the old and in with the new. We'll be sitting down with former racing driver and the original Stig from Top Gear to get to the bottom of what's been happening on the roads. This is Saturday Morning Live on GB News, Britain's news channel.
From 10 a.m. every Saturday, we want to make you think and we want to make you laugh.
So we will give you all the top stories.
Now we start with a story that has shocked the nation this week.
But we're also going to make it light and fun and bring some entertainment in to make your Saturday morning nice and restful.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Headliners. Tomorrow's papers tonight, every night from 11 p.m.
Welcome back to Headliners, and Paul, we're going to get straight into Monday's mail for some good old-fashioned, traditional male breastfeeding.
To answer the question, what is the latest woke hell, Josh? Row as hospitals say hormone-filled milk from trans women who were born male is just as good for a baby as the real thing. It's possible for men, if they pump themselves full of estrogen, to grow larger breast tissue, and they often do.
Or you just eat lots of burgers.
Exhibit A. And once you've done that, it is actually then possible to express or lactate a liquid. Okay. If to that liquid you then add another load of pills, medication, chemicals, whatever, that lactation juice can be fed to a baby.
We don't really... This is not for the sake of the baby. The baby has no benefits from this whatsoever. The studies are very weak on it. It's a bit worrying because, when hospitals started indulging in homeopathy and having, the NHS had homeopathic hospitals, that was worrying because they're supposed to be a trusted authority. And before saying something like this, there should be an awful lot of study done.
I want to shame this hospital. This is
whether it's necessary.
University Hospital Sussex NHS Foundation Trust. That's who it is. And they have written one of the stupidest sentences I have read aloud in the 2 years that I've been privileged to do this show. It says, the term human milk is meant to be neutral and not gender biased.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
That's incredible.
Yep.
Oh, my God, we're laughing at you.
I mean, and as someone says here, babies are not props. And that's the scary thing. And when we're not focusing primarily on the health of a baby.
No, but the feeling of a person doing it rather than... It's a bit of an odd way to go, isn't it? So...
every Sunday from 11. Join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Don't forget to keep sending me and Emma questions about the topics in the news this week, and we'll chat them through with our panel and guests.
Let's see what you've been saying. So we've got a comment here from Andy. He says, democracy is under threat because we have borders like a sieve.
Well, you're right, Andy.
No complaints there.
Yes.
Couldn't agree more. Also from Michael, the control of the Met should be removed from the mayor and taken over by the government. Khan cannot or will not manage effectively.
And I think that's a very fair point, Emma, because as you well know, that being broadcast on the Big Ben, on the Elizabeth Tower, the genocidal chant, I thought that was a genuine disgrace and actually shames our nation.
Yeah, and there's no point in Rishi Sunak saying all these nice words if the Met Police are not willing to actually enforce the law. They could have arrested whoever was doing it. This devolution thing has gone mad. It can't be that hard, can it, to find the person who's projecting something onto Big Ben. We've also got an email in here from Simon who says, everyone keeps saying that Galloway is a great speaker. He's not. Just because you speak slowly doesn't make you a great speaker. If you look like an idiot, sound like an idiot, then you probably are.
Do you know, I always thought that about President Obama, actually. He goes on and on, it drones, and people say he's a fantastic orator, and I mean...
It's a good sort of rhetorical skill, though, because
yes.
he always changes his intonation. It kind of keeps people locked in on those blue eyes.
Absolutely. Now, from slow speaking to fast driving, who remembers learning to drive and that moment that you stalled at the lights and everyone was stuck behind you blasting their horn?
Well, new generation of drivers are deciding to ditch the manual gearbox altogether. Darren and I have actually ditched even learning to drive. According to the DVSA, the number of tests taken in automatic vehicles has increased by a whopping 238% over the last 10 years.
Yeah, joining us now is the former racing driver and the original Stig from Top Gear, Perry McCarthy. Perry, cheers very much for your company. Now, there's a problem here, isn't there, in that people are learning to drive manual. Most people, I assume, have learned in a manual car. But now, because of the age of electric cars and all the rest of it, when you go into different parts of the world and you're getting behind the wheel, people are thinking, I cannot remember how to drive a shift, you know?
Yeah, but they're not allowed... If they pass their test using an automatic, they're not allowed to drive a shift anyway. They're not allowed to drive a manual car anyway. Personally, I don't see it as a problem. I really don't. Is that if it gets them out there and if it makes it easier to... Funny enough, the test figures show that more people are failing when they're going for their automatic test, but maybe they're just not taking enough lessons. But I'm all in favour of just going, well, if you want to drive an automatic, if you're not absolutely in love with the process of driving, then do that. It's no problem.
Do you think that's the way that things are going? Because now if you were to travel to another country, and this has happened for Americans for a long time, they come over here to the UK and they can't hire a car because they mostly drive manual. What's that going to do to, for example, the use of classic cars if people are no longer able to drive them and it becomes more difficult for people to be instructed in using what the Americans call stick shift?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't get into the classic car bit because if we're talking about the young drivers, classic cars tend to be fairly punchy on how much they cost. So I think they've got enough worries about how much insurance it costs to get out there, you know. So I wouldn't worry about classic cars. I mean, if they're wealthy enough, then they can go take more lessons to learn how to change gear. But the auto boxes, I think where there's an advantage, you know, you'll hear people screaming, it's taken the joy of driving away and everything else. But there's still a whole bunch of ways to use an auto box. If you've got flip changes behind the steering wheel, you can, balance the car using those. Or you can there's another option with an auto box where you can shift it over and use it more as a manual gearbox. The most important thing for me when somebody's driving is that young driver, middle-aged driver, old driver, is to look that way. You know, that's the most important thing. Concentrate on driving. You can still get a lot out of driving, even if you're driving in an auto car, you know, just on how you turn in, how you balance the car, and that awareness. So, you know, that's personally how I get loads. Because I drive an auto, most of the time I drive a Mini Cooper, which has got an automatic gearbox.
Is it electric?
No. It's got 7-speed auto. Yeah. No, with an electric car, you wouldn't even say auto, because there's only one gear. Yes. the electric motors spin it up, and with that torque on demand.
Are you sold on them? Have you driven many of them? Have you tried them?
The electric cars?
Yeah.
Big different subject for me is that, you know, we've got to do something, obviously, about where we're going on emissions, etc. I'm not always clear electric has been the right path, personally, but...
Well, you're with many of our viewers.
I don't trust those lithium batteries. When they're on fire, they're really on fire.
Oh, well,
yeah, but I mean, you know, that's a different thing with the scooters and stuff, isn't it? And that's really a product of who do you trust to build the batteries. I think with most manufacturers, you expect that they've been through the right amount of testing.
But they're fast, mind.
They're really quick. The electric cars, you get in those things.
In one of those things, in a Tesla, you'd be... other electric cars are available.
The great things about those...
away like a shot.
And they make you look younger, because on acceleration, it's so quick, it pulls your face back, you've got no more lights. Yeah. It's incredible.
Now, do you think, actually, this is a sign of drivers becoming more safe because of the fact that they're having to concentrate on fewer things behind the wheel? The fact that
yeah, it's a good question, actually. I don't think that has maybe been their choice for why they're doing it. Whether it's automatic or manual, I mean, what we do get with an awful lot of cars is that there's enough opportunities for distraction on the screen or from mobile phones or stuff like that. So, you know, if they can just learn to actually drive and then worry about the gearbox.
Is it a shame, though, that it's like a lost skill? Because I think, I mean, Darren and I can't drive, but if I were to learn to drive, I would only want to learn to drive manual.
Yeah, a lost skill. I mean, I remember, and believe me, I'm not infallible. You know, it's like doing the wrong gear shift and it's... You know, I did it recently, and
this is why I can't drive.
Yeah,
I mean, if you do it, then we're
seriously, I was like, you know, in our other car, I'm going along, and I went like that. And my wife looked at me and went, "Oh, that was nice," you know, expert.
Perry, we've had an email from Edwina, and Edwina's written in, "Good morning, Edwina." She says, "No, you must drive manual." She says it's fabulous. I'm nearly 77, and I did my first race at 60. I also overtook Jeremy Clarkson at Rockingham on a Top Gear feature, manual all the way.
I tell you, that's Edwina. I know she's quick, Edwina.
Yeah.
Really quick.
You know her. You remember her. I'm sure she is, though. I wouldn't like to be behind the wheel with Edwina. I think
that's great. Hello, Edwina. I think that's fantastic.
Absolutely.
But it's kind of... I don't see it as massively divisive, but it's great to hear somebody loves to use the gear shift, you know. There are some things, honest to God, you see, I'm getting my feet ready already, but, you know, I can... Yeah, for me, probably many other people, you can feel the car a little bit better. There are some advantages with having a clutch, so you can feel it, and you also feel a little bit more in control of the car. So that's the love of driving. But the gearboxes now, you know, we've been talking about this 15 years ago. The old automatic gearboxes, you'd pull away, it'd be... You know, so... Performance-wise, or getting that joy of driving is a blimmin' disaster. But now, I mean, even the Mini I've got has got 7 speeds in it. Wow. So it's like... And you're just going... It's, you know, it takes me back to being a race driver. Even when I retired, my last cars were semi-automatic, so flip change. So it's like... So it's really quick. It's technology. It's just getting better and better.
Inspired to learn to drive?
I am. Do you know what? I think I better get my bottom in gear and get behind the wheel of a car.
I think my dad's going to lose his mind over the fact that we've got...
Well, indeed. I'm sure you've divided opinion, mind. There'll be lots of people who are split either way. It might be a generational thing. Who knows?
Thank you.
Just one thing. Yeah. Is there anybody who wants to drive a manual? Go drive a manual. Yeah. If they want to drive an auto... Go drive an auto. It's not the end of the world.
Harry, cheers very much for your company.
I'm going to go learn how to drive manual.
Definitely.
Thank you.
We've got lots more to come, including all of the best presents for Mother's Day. So that's plenty of warning, meaning I have absolutely no excuse this year.
And where dreams go to die, we'll be sitting down with 2 of the actors from The Experience, Willy Wonka and an Oompa Loompa. You won't want to miss that. That's at 11:45. This is Saturday Morning Live on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg and this is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Sir Jacob Rees-Mogg's State of the Nation, Monday to Thursday from 8 p.m.
You're now in exile. I imagine it wouldn't be safe for you to go back to Russia. Can I ask you if you feel safe personally, and what do you think can be done to remove Putin, or is he going to be there for as long as he wants?
I think that is, of course, fundamental question. It is there should be pressure inside Russia and outside. Inside Russia right now, it's impossible because Putin put all leaders in jail and some of us just abroad. You know, just two were already killed. Mr. Nemtsov, Boris Nemtsov, my friend, my collaborator on my party, was killed on the walls on Kremlin. Alexei Navalny was killed in jail and in the camp. And that is, the people live in fear to identify themselves as protesters, to identify themselves as against Putin's regime, etc. That's why today there is no chance for opposition to rise inside Russia. But outside, of course, this war against Ukraine, that is the fundamental issue for all foreign leaders. And in fact, just support of Ukraine and not to let Putin to destroy Ukraine, to defeat Ukraine. That is an important issue because just Ukraine, that's not just in Ukraine, war in Ukraine. Ukraine just fighting for their territorial integrity, but fighting for the whole European countries because after Ukraine, other countries could appear, other subject of aggression could be, and Putin easily could try to test Article 5 of NATO Charter. It could be one of the small countries of Baltic states.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From 10 a.m. every Saturday, we want to make you think and we want to make you laugh.
So we will give you all the top stories.
Now we start with a story that has shocked the nation this week.
But we're also going to make it light and fun and bring some entertainment in to make your Saturday morning nice and restful.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Don't forget to keep sending Darren and I your questions about the topics on the news this week, and we'll chat through them with our panel and guests.
Indeed, let's have a look at what you've been saying. Barbara's written in, and Barbara, good morning, Barbara. She says, Rishi is right. We have lost our democracy. And Margaret says on the Perry conversation about a manual and automatic, she says, I've always driven a manual and there are so many cases of older people putting their foot on the wrong pedal and causing accidents. I never want to drive an automatic.
Not just older people.
Well, yeah, I imagine if I got behind the wheel
Terry,
of a car...
my driving instructor.
Exactly. It'll be a hard day for safety of roads. Now, Moira says, when are we going to have an International Man's Day? Do you think we need one, Emma?
I don't like having international anything days, but I think there is an International Man's Day.
If
there's going to be an International Women's Day, then yes.
Is it an International Women's Month now as well? I don't know how long it goes on for these days. International Men's Day is in November. I'm being reliably informed by my very clever producer. And Russell says, the general public only seem to get police protection after politicians get protected. Now, Emma, I thought that was interesting because I said this on X or Twitter, whatever you call it, and I said, look, I think it's a damn disgrace that we're talking about the protection of politicians whilst they let illegal migration run rampant.
Yeah, I know. I mean, if you were living on the Kent coast, you wouldn't be exactly feeling particularly safe.
When you've got a woman who had a home broken into and all the rest of it in Calais.
I think somebody demanded that she drive them all the way up north.
In Calais, in Kent even. Yeah, exactly, yeah. They're all coming up to Newcastle. You're all very welcome. And on George Galloway, Nigel's written in, and Nigel says, I think George Galloway will be a short-term MP, as my granddad used to quote today's news, but tomorrow's chip, from the days when they wrapped chips in newspapers. It's a very good point. But I do think, actually, George Galloway represents a change in the political environment, a change in a more, I think, a politics based on religious sectarianism.
Yeah, completely.
And that's deeply
And actually,
troubling.
when you look at so even when Rishi Sunak is giving this speech and talking about how democracy is in threat, there was still a heckler yelling at him throughout the whole speech. And I think that there's something so sort of like comically sums up the terrible situation that we found ourselves in.
It is terrible, but, you know, we here at GB News will be keeping you all up to date with the nightmare as it unfolds, I guess. Can't wait.
Dystopian nightmare. So there is on to better news, there is a big day looming next weekend as we celebrate our wonderful mothers, a day dedicated to motherhood, maternal bonds and the influence of mothers in society.
Indeed, a very important day for all the mams or mums out there. But what's the best way of saying cheers for everything? And how can you make sure you don't leave it to the last minute? Mothers everywhere are going to be grateful for this reminder we've got for you.
So joining us now is freelance celebrity interviewer, lifestyle and beauty editor, Suzanne Baum. Thank you for joining us, Suzanne.
Thank you for having me.
Suzanne, what have you got for us? This looks
Lots
marvellous.
of goodies.
Lots.
So I think we need to start off by saying I'm so glad we're doing this week and not next, because had we have done it next week, there would have been every excuse not to get the woman in your life a gift. At least today, your viewers have got 8 days.
No excuses.
No excuses.
No
and I'm
next
going to just
day orders on Amazon on Saturday.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just going to run through a few of my favourite gifts, slightly original. Not, you know, you're not going to be running off to the gas station to get flowers or chocolates. I've got some really nice bits, and I want to start off by what I'm wearing here. If you can see it. This is from Mothers Everywhere. I'm a big supporter of independent brands. This is from Percy and Nell, and it's all about feel-good clothing. So it's bright messages, bright material, bright lettering. This is £40, and I think...
British brand, is it?
It's a British brand. It's called Percy and Nell, and I think every mother should be wearing this. Look, you can see it on the camera. I love it.
Super mother.
Super mother. And then, obviously, perfume is big, beauty is big. I've chosen my favourite brand because there's just so much to choose from. Juliet Has a Gun.
Oh.
Yeah, it's a very strange name.
Juliet has a
gun. But if you smell this fragrance, she certainly doesn't. They do laundry detergents, they do perfume. I'm wearing the perfume now. This is stunning.
What does it mean, not a shower gel? What is it?
Well, that's the branding, I think. And the smell is fresh, it stays on your body, so it's not one of those ones that's going to go. And it's £22.50. I think this is lovely, and I like the packaging
now,
too.
I am dying to know what the mallet is.
OK, so the mallet, normally I have a microphone, so the mallet comes with this.
Oh.
Now, obviously, there's loads and loads of chocolates you can buy for your mother. This is from a brand called Sweet Treats that you can buy online. This, for example, is £45. It's a large pink smash heart. So, as the message says, I don't know if I'm going to make a mess here.
So you can break your mother's heart on Mother's
Day.
You can
smash
As you're opening in that there, the Love You Mum, I always struggle because I have to look for cards that say Ma'am. And I struggle to find Ma'am.
OK, so if we see here, I mean, look, I won't smash it because it will cause a terrible mess. But if I did smash it, all the chocolates fly out. So after this segment, I'm going to put it there and we can eat it together. So this...
is going to be giving my mum high hopes.
Yes.
It is £45. I love it. Right, so going on to another independent brand. I think it's really important to support independent brands. Every woman needs a good makeup brush. You might not understand, but... well, you will understand, but makeup brushes can be very expensive and cannot do what they say. Danny Levi's set, you get 8 pieces, eight brushes in here, and it's basically every single brush you need to create the look. This is £45, and these are proper good brushes. Normally, you could spend £45 on one brush.
Yeah.
So, need to give this a shout-out because this is a lovely brand. And talking about makeup, I think perhaps we need to go on to this.
Now, I've seen this because Instagram advertising have done a good job in pushing that particular brand.
The algorithm
clearly recognises me, yes.
I have to say it's brilliant. I mean, I could put it on and you could see, like, how well our makeup's doing
bright,
today.
isn't it?
This is Beauty Effect. They specialise in products, makeup bags, mirrors. This is brilliant. This is, if you want to do your makeup, you have 3 different settings. Day, night, probably studio lighting as well, and it gives you a really good close-up.
Now, are you expecting, during a cost of living crisis, are you expecting retail sales to be lower?
So, yes, lots of places are slashing prices, and it'll probably start from next week. This is expensive. So this is if you really want to spend money, and I think it's worth the money. It is expensive. This is £150.
Wow.
But it's, for me, the best mirror I've got. I mean, you know, it's got the lighting, everything. It is
How's it
expensive.
powered? Is that battery?
That's battery power, but I've had it... I mean, it's lasted for a long time. Should we talk about slippers?
Absolutely, why not?
I mean, Mother's Day slippers, they kind of go hand in hand. These are my favourite slippers. Shall I hold them up to the camera? Yes. These are FitFlop. And what I like about these is they're basically really cool sliders. So if you want to be cool around the house, you wear them, but they also have the element of they lift your foot. So
Would you wear those?
I must
you wear
admit
these?
I wouldn't.
You wouldn't.
So they are actually pinker than they look on the screen, I think, because of the lighting.
So I have been wearing these because I have a sore foot. I have a plantar fasciitis, which means I can't put my foot flat. These are amazing, and that's because you've got the FitFlop band.
Do you wear them, Darren?
I wouldn't, actually, no.
You wouldn't? They do them in lots of different colours.
Wow.
Anyway, so that's...
Yes, I think my mother might after a hard day at work.
Yeah, I think they're really nice just to get home, take your shoes off and put them in. Jewellery, we need to talk about jewellery. Actually, I'm wearing... This is Princess Andre, actually. So this is one of... She's got a jewellery collection out that's got some really cute little pieces in.
Very, very delicate.
Yes,
that
very delicate.
Peter's daughter, of course.
Peter's daughter has a tiny little heart. And again, not expensive. This comes in at £54. So, and it's silver. So I think if you want to give your mum...
It's a heart, isn't it?
It's a little heart. If you want to give... It's from Lux Jewellery. If you want to give your mum a gift that tells you you love her, I think this is really cute. And journaling.
Very briefly, we'll do journaling.
Journaling, briefly journaling. Love journaling. As a journalist, journaling is my therapy.
You find it important?
I find it important, and also in this sort of whole well-being buzzwords and everything, you know, to write down your thoughts. This is lovely for mum. Write your shopping list.
It's good for your mental health as well.
It's so good for your mental health. And these books, Overwhelming Journal, Anti-Burnout Journal, are fabulous.
Suzanne, I'm sure you've helped many out there. Thank you very much.
It's such a pleasure.
An absolute pleasure.
Thank you for having me.
And what will you be getting your mum for Mother's Day?
I'm not going to say on national television because she will indeed be watching this, but let's just say she has sent over some very expensive items of clothing, and I think that's a passive-aggressive hint.
Well, my mum always gets daffodils, so I'm not going to be disappointing her by breaking the secret there. So thank you very much, Suzanne. Coming up, knife crime is on the rise with just under 50,000 offences in 2023. What is going on? This is Saturday Morning Live on GB News, Britain's news channel.
From 10 a.m. every Saturday, we want to make you think and we want to make you laugh.
So we will give you all the top stories.
Now we start with a story that has shocked the nation this week.
But we're also going to make it light and fun and bring some entertainment in to make your Saturday morning nice and restful.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Nana Queer, weekends from 3 p.m.
Sadiq Khan, 6.3 million on a virtue signal, load of lines. Why is he spending the people's money in this way? And why is nobody saying anything? I want to hear from Suzanne Hall, the potential Conservative candidate, or Howard Cox, the potential Reform candidate who could potentially take this off Sadiq Khan. Why are they not speaking? This is ridiculous.
Well, it was sprung on everybody. Did you know about that?
I didn't know about it.
Nobody knows. So they're spending this money. They're spending £6.3 million, and no one knew about it. Where's the press? Where are the public consultations? No one knew. I think it's a good idea to rename the train lines, because all these train lines are There are like 4 of them, 6 of them, whatever, and they're all going all these different directions. And you tell someone to come, and you don't even know the name.
Yeah, but 6.3 million. Listen, if he wants to give me 6.3 million to come up with some virtue signalling lines, I'd like to know which advertising agency he employed to do this, how long it took him, and why he's even done it in the first place. Why has he done this?
He has done this with the virtue signalling because he's part of Team World. He's Rishi Sunak. It's this whole concept is every inclusiveness. There is no country. Nobody's English. Our own history is bad. Not my history, but whatever. The English history is bad. And it's a denial of history. It's Orwellian or something. Yeah. Not that I know about.
I think it's an absolute absurdity that Sadiq Khan should be doing that. He's got a knife crime epidemic, a crime epidemic, people stealing watches off people walking down the street.
Yes.
You've got the burglary at an all-time high. London, a lot of people are put off by it. And this is what he spent £6.3 million on.
This could have been a bit
to speak as to why.
He doesn't need to speak. People need to speak out and say, well, why didn't we know about this? But the idea, can I say something to you, Nana? The idea is right. It's like, for example, take the Northern Line. You know, there are 6 Northern Lines.
6 Northern Lines.
6 different Northern Lines, maybe more now, because one goes from Mill Hill East to Mill Hill.
But this was the overground he was...
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
to find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Saturday Morning Live. Knife crime is on the rise in Britain. In the year ending September 2023, it increased to just under 50,000 offences. That's 5% higher compared to the year before.
In South Yorkshire, Ministry of Justice data showed that 2/3 of cautions or convictions for knife crime in the area were handed to first-time offenders.
Our Yorkshire reporter, Anna Riley, has been to a charity-run event in Sheffield involving young people to get knives off the streets.
Giving a helping hand to stop young people from carrying knives. Anthony Olasende founded charity Always an Alternative after growing up surrounded by knife crime in Sheffield. He wants to get knives off the streets of the Steel City and launched an awareness event at Showroom Cinema.
When I was 15, I saw someone get murdered. They got stabbed to death, unfortunately. But what was strange, it didn't really affect me because I was around that kind of stuff all the time growing up. Violence was normal. Every day I'm looking over my shoulder. Every day, you know, someone's getting locked up or someone's getting injured. Surely life can't just be that. I had a few lucky escapes myself and I thought, I've actually had enough. I work more than this. This can't continue to happen. I've got kids now. I don't want to not be there for them, so I made that decision.
Keaton Naylor experienced the pain of losing a loved one to knife crime. His best friend, Louis Phillips, was stabbed to death at the age of 15 by a stranger during an unprovoked attack in South Yorkshire.
Ever since I lost my best friend, it's made me realise, well, knives really aren't needed. Like, there's so much more to life than carrying a knife, well, just a weapon in general. It was training for Barnsley Football Club. It was doing well, getting grades and that. It just applied for college. So it really wasn't a bad lad.
Tackling knife crime to prevent further tragedies is a priority for South Yorkshire Police.
The police are obviously doing a lot in terms of trying to identify, locate and target those individuals or gangs that are prone to violence and use guns and knives. So there's a lot of work around that. But prevention is really the more important thing. How do we stop young people?
Back at Showroom Cinema, students from a Sheffield high school produced a short film to highlight knife crime amongst teenagers.
It was really educational and you don't understand how
bad knife crime is until, like, you're being told the figure.
You know, something like this could happen to me, could happen to anyone. But it is concerning and it is something that, you know, that I don't want to happen.
With recent figures showing 17% of knife crime offenders in England and Wales were under 18, it's hoped schemes like this will deter children from carrying weapons. Anna Riley, GB News.
Now, we've just had a reminder via email, Emma, that actually this is happening outside of London as well as elsewhere, and that package really does highlight that knife crime is becoming a nationwide issue. And we've got to ask the question, why are so many kids feeling as though they absolutely have to go out onto the streets with a knife?
And it's one of those things, isn't it, that proliferates, because if you have, you know, some people are carrying knives, people then start feeling that they need to carry knives for their own self-protection or self-defence. And I know that I don't feel safe in and around London or in some other parts of the country, particularly in cities, because you see these videos all the time on social media of people wielding machetes in, you know, outside of pubs, and every couple of days there seems to be a new video.
But do you know what? The question that I was asking only the other day was, why on earth are we selling machetes in this country? Why on earth were we ever selling those zombie knives, those
well,
big
I imagine
things?
they're not getting them from the supermarket.
Well, no, indeed not. But even online, you know, I don't think you should be able to procure those kinds of weapons of brutality
Yeah, I know.
in this market.
Often the argument is that it's very difficult to ban the possession of knives in a blanket way, because you can't, you know, charge someone for carrying a butter knife, or they might be going on a picnic or something. But nobody's going on a picnic with a zombie knife.
Yeah.
They're not using a machete to carve their chicken.
No.
Not that anyone takes a roast chicken on a picnic, but you see my point.
I do indeed. But I mean, I'm wondering, how do we actually convince young men that their lives are worth more than being banged up for sticking a blade into someone? It's gruesome.
I think education goes a long way, but it is a case of social entropy, isn't it? That you know, these things do spiral upwards. You need to try and somehow change the trend.
Yeah. Right, folks, we've got loads more coming up, including our Showbiz section, more of the top stories and the actors involved in that Willy Wonka experience. Don't go away.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Greg Dewhurst and welcome to your latest GB News weather. We've got areas of rain, sleet and snow pushing northwards today. Quite a cold feeling day, some frost and fog tonight. And that's all courtesy of this area of low pressure. Cold air associated with this, but it does start to ease as we go through towards the end of the weekend, meaning drier weather on the way. For the rest of this afternoon, outbreaks of rain, sleet and snow pushing northwards across England and Wales, particularly over the higher ground we could see a covering. Showers across Northern Ireland, some brighter skies for Scotland, and then wet and windy weather across northern Scotland, some snow here too. Quite a cold feeling day, 4, 5, 6 degrees for many, 7 or 8 degrees in the far south in any sunny spells. Through this evening time, this area of rain, sleet and snow continues to push its way northwards. Elsewhere, it starts to become drier. Still some coastal showers, but inland, under light winds, we could see some mist and fog patches developing, turning quite dense by the end of the night. Some icy stretches too, as temperatures fall close to, if not below freezing, -2 to -4 in the countryside. So a cold, icy start to Sunday morning. Some dense fog patches take their time to slowly lift and break as we move through the day. But overall, tomorrow it should be drier and brighter, some sunny spells. This weather front nearby could give some thicker cloud, patchy rain along some eastern coast, a few showers in the west. Temperatures near average for the time of year. See you soon.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Yeah, so describe the contents of the letter for us, because it is quite strongly worded, isn't it? And it suggests that your property is empty. And what do they suggest it's going to be used for?
They say, as part of this process, Northamptonshire Council is identifying empty properties and sites within the area, with the aim of encouraging owners to bring premises back into use or to find alternative options for derelict sites. The resettlement team in Northamptonshire Council supports asylum seekers and refugees across 3 different projects: Homes for Ukraine, Afghan resettlement and asylum dispersal. At present, we are seeing a considerable increase in positive immigration decisions being made in favour of asylum seekers. So basically, they're wanting accommodation. But who goes around and assesses whether these properties are lived in or they are actually empty?
Clearly, Ted, no one had bothered to come and look at your house at all, had they?
What do you want now? Because clearly you are both very shaken by this letter, and that letter that you've received in response has not gone far enough. Do you want an apology? What more do you want to see?
Well, she said here that she's, you know, I sincerely apologise, this Lindsay Bellchambers, but I don't see, there was no explanation as to how they've come to say this property was empty, whether it was disused, whether it was unkempt, or what. If you go back through the history of the property, it's not been empty.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQ's live here on GB News. Every Wednesday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions when Rishi Sunak and Sir Keir Starmer go head-to-head in the House of Commons.
We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQ's live here on GB News, Britain's election channel.
Good morning, I'm Darren Grimes alongside Emma Webb, and we're standing in for Ellie and Pete this morning on Saturday Morning Live.
Great to have your company this morning, and do we have an action-packed show for you? We have all of the day's top stories with our panel, the fallout from the Rochdale by-election and Rishi's speech last night. Is democracy under threat? All of that and more with the former Special Advisor to Michael Gove, Charlie Rowley, and broadcaster Esther Stanhope.
And all of the latest from the world of showbiz. What's going to happen at the Brits? A Lifetime Achievement Award for an Australian pop star. Sorry, Peter Andre, I know you're watching at home. It's not you. It's the wonderful Kylie Minogue, and rightly so.
And we'll be catching up on all the latest from the royal household. Prince William is back at work after taking a surprise absence from his godfather's memorial service. And what's next for Prince Harry after losing his High Court challenge against the government over a decision to downgrade his level of personal security?
Now, many are asking, where is the Princess of Wales? And many of you are emailing in to say none of your business. We'll be getting to the bottom of that, though, later on. And don't forget, we want to hear from you. Email us, gbviews@gbnews.com.
But before we do anything else, Sam Francis has all your news headlines.
Darren, Emma, thank you very much, and good morning from the GB newsroom. It's just gone 11 o'clock, and the top story this morning: more pro-Palestine protests are planned over the weekend following Rishi Sunak's warning last night that Islamist extremists and far-right groups are, he says, spreading poison and trying to tear us apart. In that speech delivered from Downing Street, he called for the nation to unite, highlighting the rise in extremist disruption, intimidation, threats and planned acts of violence. It followed George Galloway's controversial win in the Rochdale by-election this week, which the Prime Minister described as beyond alarming.
The Rochdale by-election returned a candidate who dismisses the horror of what happened on October the 7th, who glorifies Hezbollah and is endorsed by Nick Griffin the racist former leader of the BNP. I need to speak to you all this evening because this situation has gone on long enough and demands a response not just from government, but from all of us.
Well, opposition parties have given mixed reactions to that speech by the Prime Minister yesterday, with the Liberal Democrats accusing him of, they say, sowing seeds of divisions. However, Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer said Rishi Sunak is right to call for the country to unite and to condemn what he called unacceptable and intimidating behaviour. Meanwhile, the new MP for Rochdale, George Galloway, who's also a former presenter for the Iranian state TV, says the Prime Minister is playing a very dangerous game that could drive young Muslims into extremism.
It's worse than a lie, it's dangerous. Because, you see, if you're saying to Muslims who vote that your vote will be delegitimised if you cast it the wrong way, and if you go out on a demonstration peacefully to demonstrate, then you'll be called a terrorist, and new laws, new police approaches will be conjured forth against you. If you do that, you are driving people away from the path of democracy and peaceful democratic protest.
Organisers of this weekend's protests have now responded to the Prime Minister's pledge to back stronger police action, suggesting he expels some senior MPs from the Conservative Party. It's after Rishi Sunak pledged last night to support the robust policing of demonstrations, particularly pro-Palestinian marches. The Metropolitan Police has in the past said that showing support for a terror group is a criminal offence, adding that in a statement, the right to protest comes with a responsibility to act lawfully. Several local marches are planned today and tomorrow before another national demonstration in the capital on the 9th of March. To the US now, where President Biden says he hopes to see a ceasefire agreement between Israel and Hamas before the start of Ramadan on the 10th of March. It comes as the US announced plans for a military airdrop of food and supplies into the region to tackle the growing humanitarian crisis there. And that comes as the United Nations has warned that around 25% of Gaza's population, more than 500,000 people, are on the brink, they say, of famine. Back here in the UK, a manhunt is now underway after 3 people were injured in a shooting in an area of London popular with bars and restaurants. The shots were fired by assailants on a moped last night as they were being pursued by police in Clapham in South London. That was at around 5 o'clock. 2 people suffered shotgun pellet injuries as they were drinking at a nearby pub. And we understand a 3rd person was injured by the moped itself, though none of those injuries are life-threatening. Police say that they are now trying to trace the moped and the suspects after they fled the scene. And finally, the retirement of 30 Typhoon jets that were used to protect British skies from potential attacks has been likened to scrapping Spitfires before the Battle of Britain. RAF bosses are grounding a fleet of Typhoons in an effort to save a reported £300 million. That's despite only completing 40% of their predicted flying hours during their lifespan. It comes as Defence Secretary Grant Shapps urges the Chancellor to increase military spending to 2.5% of GDP, something, though, that Jeremy Hunt says won't be in his budget next week. Military historian and defence analyst Chris Newton told GB News this morning that the jets should be kept in service.
It does send the wrong message with regards to Russia and our willingness. If we can't spend this money on an operational reserve, it doesn't send a good message to Russia and about our resolve and our willingness to deter major conflict.
Those are the headlines. For more, you can sign up to GB News Alerts by scanning the QR code on your screen, or of course go to our website gbnews.com/alerts.
Welcome to Saturday Morning Live. The time is now 11:06. Now, I want to ask you, do you recognise these fellas? Looks a bit like the GB News Christmas party, but 850 ticket holders thought they were signing up to see these Oompa Loompas when they bought 35 quid golden tickets to Willy's chocolate experience in Glasgow.
In reality, it was more like a first-class ticket to hell, or as some pundits called it, where dreams go to die.
Damning.
We'll be sitting down with two of the actors from the experience, Willy Wonka and the Oompa Loompa. You won't want to miss it. That's all at 11:45.
Now, of course, Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has claimed that democracy is under threat. That was last night, from extremism in the wake of Hamas's October 7th attack on Israel.
In his speech to the nation, he also said there are forces here at home who are trying to tear us apart. Let's take a listen.
I fear that our great achievement in building the world's most successful multi-ethnic, multi-faith democracy is being deliberately undermined. There are forces here at home trying to tear us apart. On too many occasions recently, our streets have been hijacked by small groups who are hostile to our values and have no respect for our democratic traditions. Threats of violence and intimidation are alien to our way of doing things. They must be resisted at all times.
Now, we're delighted to be joined by former Special Advisor to Michael Gove, Charlie Rowley, and the broadcaster Esther Stanhope. Charlie, are you partial to a bit of Willy Wonka?
Depends what day of the week it is, I suppose. Look, I think it was a fantastic story. I wondered where... I thought I hadn't seen you for a while.
Yes.
Up in Glasgow. What an extraordinary thing to happen to those poor people that sort of paid £35.
Some people drove 3 hours to get there.
Yes,
and also £30 a person, apparently. So that's
35.
for £35 a person, which is for, including for the children, presumably. So some people would have spent over £100 just to get into the event.
And I heard all the kids were given just one jelly bean or something like that.
And half a glass of lemonade.
No
right?
chocolate.
No chocolate whatsoever.
Chocolate was in the title.
Yes.
You know, it's extraordinary.
False advertising.
On this story that we saw in the headlines there, on the state of the RAF, Emma, I'm worried about this, and I don't know what the panel think about it, because we get this constant slew of stories. Now, either someone in the MOD is doing a fantastic PR job, or we're in really dire straits. We can't man specific parts of the Royal Navy. We're having to roll people back, get them out. And now, of course, we're seeing that these jets are being cancelled. Is Britain actually able to defend itself?
Well, that'll be the key question. And I think, look, all eyes on the Chancellor on the 6th of March, just next week, to see what support there might be for the MOD in terms of the budget that he announced. You remember the former Defence Secretary, Ben Wallace, was always able to lobby for more money for defence spending and to protect the armed services. So we'll just have to see if there is any money in that budget. But you're right, you know, we're hearing things about our nuclear missiles sort of failed testing going a bit awry. You know, we're obviously giving more jets to Ukraine. We have to make sure that our intelligence and our capabilities right across all of those three fronts.
Horrendous recruitment problems as well. So we just saw there it compared to downing our fleet during just before the Battle of Britain. Do you think that this is, you know, you see this and you think this is just astonishing? It is so plainly a terrible idea. Is it naivety? Are they just simply not alert to it, or do you think they should be raising defence spending, and that's something that's just plainly obvious?
Well, it's funny that you said they're not manned or womaned, indeed, because we talked about the story earlier about men and women and equality. You know, men and women are in the armed forces. I think we should really celebrate that it is, you know, it is a really good career path. My father-in-law was actually the captain of a nuclear submarine, and I feel that we used to be very proud of our, you know, we had some kind of we were proud of the army. We were proud of people who were trained to fly planes and things like that. Like, what's going on? Why aren't there enough people?
Well, hang on, I'm going to throw a cat among the pigeons here, because surely it's actually the focus on, with a laser-like focus on diversity and inclusion. That's been a problem for the armed forces.
And making men, and particularly white men, feel that they're simply not welcome. And of course, that has historically been the bulk of the recruitment into the armed forces. And then the message, this diversity all these diversity stories and diversity policies send, surely, is that you're not welcome here. We don't want you.
Yes, I think there was a case against the RAF who sort of were found wanting with an internal report just for trying to do this tick-boxing exercise, as it were. But I think, look, we need to make sure that anybody that signs up to the armed forces, they are the Britain's best, whether you're man, woman. If you want to sign up, obviously you can serve, but you are promoted to whatever rank just through sheer hard work and merit to make sure that ultimately you can be keeping not just UK citizens safe at home, but if you're deployed overseas, that you're keeping the international community safe in the best way that you can.
I've got to say, it is a very different structure now with technology. I mean, I've spoken at quite a few events at the MOD. There are much more women in more technological roles in the army. And you can do a lot of damage without flying a plane these days because there's a lot of technology involved now. It's a different kind of structure, isn't it?
Very quickly on Rishi's speech in relation to this story, the underpinning of what he was saying in that speech, even if he's praising multicultural, or he's praising the success of Britain's multicultural society, which is obviously arguable, is the underpinning of that social sort of tearing of the social fabric and social fragmentation, does that have something to do with the problem in the armed forces in this crisis? Because, like you were saying, people just don't really feel that sense of they don't feel comfortable with that sense of patriotism that actually is what compels people to want to defend their country.
I think there's two things. I think there's a sense of entitlement, and I think there's a sense of rebellion. And I think the more that you sort of hear about the armed forces or the police withdrawing, that allows these mobs and these people to scale the Prime Minister's home, where people think it's OK to chain themselves and glue themselves to the streets to block ambulances and emergency service vehicles attending crime or ambulance. So, we have a culture now where people think that, well, I'm protesting and I've got free speech, so I can say just what on earth I want and I can do whatever the hell I think is right and protest outside an MP's home and use intimidation tactics. That is something that has entered British society, which is just fundamentally wrong, which we need to take back control of, if I can use that phrase. And that's why Rishi Sunak
Labour have taken that and ran with it. How rich of Sir Keir Starmer to stand there saying, take back control. He wanted to sell us off to Michel Barnier. Anyway.
I like what Stephen Pound said earlier about, police should be policing, not facilitating. Yeah. I mean, I want to feel safe on the streets. I'm a Londoner. I've lived in every part of London.
That leads me on neatly to what's going on in Clapham. I mean, Charlie, you've been spotted once or twice in certain parts of Clapham. Now, I won't go into
darling.
detail which.
Calm.
Do you either of you feel safe in London?
Well, just on the Clapham stuff, I mean, I feel terrified because what people haven't linked the two is that this Bellevue pub is, a nice pub at the end of one end of Clapham High Street, but at the other end you had a pub called the Two Brewers where there was a stabbing not so long ago outside.
Yes.
And we've obviously seen the Sarah Everard case, obviously, a few years ago. Clapham is actually a very, very nice place.
It's calm, darling, calm.
Sorry, it is.
It's renamed.
But all of these incidents are now mounting up, and it is becoming terrifying if you live in that particular part of London.
Do you feel safe, Esther?
Well,
at night?
Yeah.
I know I don't.
So I've got an 18-year-old daughter, so we have a rule where she has to get an Uber and then she has to text from the car. So there are other taxi services available. But, we have a rule, never be on your own, never be in an unlit street. I live in Spitalfields near Shoreditch, so it's always lit and there's 24-hour security. I do feel safe. I also have taught my kids, and my son's a teenager as well, to be, you've just got to have your wits about you, really. If you're streetwise, you can tell if something's not quite right very quickly. Like if you're on your headphones or looking at your phone, that is you're kind of drawing attention to yourself by not being vigilant. But can I just add, though, that gun, wasn't it a pellet gun? It was a pellet gun, wasn't it? The one, the shooting.
Oh,
It said they had pellet wounds.
It was a shotgun, yeah.
Was it not pellet, just a pellet gun?
Not that, no. Well, 3 people are in hospital, so it must have been... well, maybe it was, actually.
Hopefully not life.
Shotgun pellet injuries,
Yeah. Or, I mean, that's not excuse. That doesn't mean it's not important.
It's not hunky-dory happy days.
Apparently was shot from a moped.
Yes.
So, I mean, it's like something from a gangster film,
well, it is actually
a Wild West.
I think it's a bunch of idiots mucking about.
Khan rants on and on about Suella Braverman's language or Rishi Sunak's language. But anyway, look, we want to talk to you about Jerry Horner, or Jerry Halliwell.
Jerry Halliwell, yeah. Ooh.
Now, in that position, you find out that your hubby has been sending some text messages. You scroll through the iPhone. What do you do?
You know what?
I read the messages and I don't think they're that bad. Can I say that?
I haven't read them.
I
actually don't care.
We just came across a few messages. They're quite
spicy.
If I found those messages, it would be
that would be the end for you. Even if you're, dare I say, even if you're...
My other half, we've been married 21 years.
You're going to bollock me for saying this on anti-feminist grounds.
Go on.
Even if your hubby was as rich as Mr. Horner.
Little Mr. Horner sat in the corner. OK, it's a hard one, but it's so humiliating. It's just devastating, humiliating. I would literally be...
I apologise for you.
On my knees. Oh, who said that?
Me,
Phew. They were bad, weren't they?
They're not good, and I have to say, I mean, I can't, pretend to know what Jerry Halliwell's going through when you find out that your husband's because I've never been married, I've never been kissed.
Oh,
I don't know what it's like.
Hang on, it wasn't. This is look. I don't want to be anti-Christian Horner because he is amazing. The Red Bull team is amazing. Formula One's on today, but I think he did leave his wife for Jerry.
Yes.
And I think that his wife might have been...
So is there a certain amount of once a cheater, always a cheater?
Well...
I was saying last night on Headliners that, if they'll do it to the person before, if they'll do it to you, they'll do it with you.
Yeah. A leopard doesn't change its spots. And I think that I'm not sure if I would ever trust him.
Yes.
I mean, the sad thing is, obviously, she stood by him throughout the whole internal investigation, and and she was on the plane, I think, a private jet, to go and see him in Bahrain after he got cleared and to celebrate. And these text messages leaked out overnight whilst she was mid-air, essentially.
Yeah.
So,
to the whole of the racing community as well.
Why do you think people are so interested in this?
Well, aren't you?
No.
I am. I find it absolutely...
Page news. It's their private business, surely.
Well, we're talking about a multi-million-dollar... Formula One is massive. That we are proud of Formula One, right?
Yeah.
Formula One, this country kind of,
enormous.
We host them, right? But the people from all over the world are involved.
Ken has written in, and Ken says, "Who cares?" in capital letters.
Thank you, Ken.
OK, Ken.
Ken is the voice of the nation.
I don't think we really are a nation of voyeurs in the way that the front page of the Sun would have it.
Where do you stand then on finding out more about the Princess of Wales and the health condition and all the rest of it? Do you think actually we've got a right to know, or do you side with those flooding this email inbox saying, keep your beak out?
No, we don't need to know. I mean, the poor love's in hospital.
I think we do. I'd like to know.
She's entitled to a private... Everyone is entitled...
Jerry Halliwell, then, is entitled to a private life? Or do you think if you're in the public eye...
Well, I could be in a lift with
Jerry Horner, I should say.
I could be in a lift with Kim Kardashian. I wouldn't know who she was. I
I'll tell a story. I actually was once in a lift with Tom Jones, and I didn't realise it was Tom Jones.
That's not unusual.
So while we've still got a bit of time left, I want to ask you about this story on the nation's most nostalgic sounds, because the Nokia ringtone has come out for some reason on top.
Yes, let's play it. Now, I just find that annoying.
Isn't it?
He's doing the mobile shuffle.
Is there a sound that you find particularly nostalgic?
There's do you remember the old internet dial-up tone? Before all this wireless, and you had to, it was like a phone dialing, going into the internet. You had to wait there for about 5 minutes, it seemed, to get any connection before you could then go online.
Is that nice nostalgia?
Well, no, I'm glad we haven't got it.
Well, I was listening.
It was frustrating.
I was listening to Michael Portillo earlier, and he had an old dial from the old-fashioned phone. I do like that sound. I remember if you had a really good dial on your phone, it had a really good chunky. It's kind of like a nice chunky sound, and I quite miss those mechanical sounds.
Yes,
the old
it's the haptic nature of it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Nostalgic sound.
Well, I'm not old enough to remember those. Thank you very much.
You remember dial-up internet with
I remember dial-up
but I don't feel
internet,
nostalgic
but not sort of
the phone.
Don't
you remember the phone?
I don't.
We used to have a phone lock.
Did you know? I think we had buttons.
Really? Yeah. We had a phone lock on ours, so you couldn't actually dial it.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
So the kids couldn't get it.
Yes,
like a child.
But I worked out how to hack it. I'll tell you
I like
afterwards.
the sound of a crackling fire. You can get those 24 hours they run on YouTube.
Oh, that's
Listen
nice.
to them all day, every day if you want to, but anyway.
Panel, thank you very much. Fabulous as ever.
Thank you.
Now, still to come, we're going to be joined by the actors behind that scandalous Willy Wonka experience.
But up next, where is the Princess of Wales? And what's going on with Prince Harry? All the latest royal news up next. This is Saturday Morning Live on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Farage, Monday to Thursday from 7 p.m.
We're always told that there is a huge need for care workers in Britain. We're always told that the salaries just aren't big enough against the benefit system for British people to want to do that work. And there probably is some real truth in that. And yet, if up to 25% of those that come are acting illegally, and it would seem, up until now, that in some areas, foreign care workers come in, but bring in almost the same number of family members with them, that we need to have a proper debate about this. I'm very pleased to be joined by Mike Padgham, chair of the Independent Care Group. If I accept those arguments for a moment, how can it be that the system is so lax that up to 25% are found by the Inspector of Borders and Immigration to be working illegally?
Well, good evening to you, Nigel. It was good to join you. I mean, those figures are shocking to me. When I looked at it today, when I saw that 275 visas had been issued to a care home that didn't even exist, and a further over 1,000 people joined a company that only had previously 4 staff in it, it makes me wonder the bureaucracy of the Home Office didn't think to check that these companies exist in the first place, because it should be quite straightforward. If people are providing care, they're regulated by the Care Quality Commission. It's a simple phone call to check and double check. Sadly, there seems to have been very many loopholes at the beginning. I believe that's been tightened now, but I can't understand it, because all the providers that are doing it in the proper way have to go through quite a rigmarole to actually get approved, and it takes months. So it beggars belief that this has happened and people have been approved for a company that doesn't even exist.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Saturday Morning Live. It's another big week for the royal family, where the Princess of Wales has apparently gone missing. That's what Twitter thinks anyway. After not seeing her for weeks, Kensington Palace have said that she is doing well as she recovers from abdominal surgery.
Meanwhile, Prince William returned to royal duties on Thursday. That was a few days since he withdrew from a memorial service for his godfather. He visited a synagogue where he met a Holocaust survivor. Joining us now to unpick all the latest from the royal household and where actually Princess of Wales actually is, and whether or not actually we have a right to know that, folks. That's the question I want to know. We're joined now by the royal commentator and good friend of the show, Jenny Bond. Jenny, an absolute pleasure to see you. Where are you at on that argument? Do you think people should keep their beaks out of the Princess of Wales' health concerns?
I think we should all dial it down. I think we cannot be dancing to the tune of social media and internet trolls and conspiracy theorists who know absolutely nothing. Nothing has changed from the moment that Catherine was taken into hospital for her abdominal surgery. We were told that it was going to take a long time for her to recover, several weeks. Indeed, we were very unlikely to see her any time before Easter. Nothing has changed about that. The palace have said nothing has changed. So some kind of frenzy has been whipped up online, which is totally ridiculous. I think we should shut up about it. She is a woman who has had serious surgery. She would rather keep the details of that private, and that's her absolute right.
Well, Jenny, I'm telling you right now, what you are saying will be music to the ears of our viewers and listeners, because that's what they're saying in this email inbox all morning today.
And I also agree, actually.
Yes.
I think it's pretty strange that people seem to want...
Yes.
They seem to want there to be some kind of...
But, Jenny, what do you say to the argument that actually, because His Majesty the King was very open about his cancer diagnosis, that now a precedent has been set where Buckingham Palace was open about His Majesty the King, and therefore Kensington Palace perhaps ought to be about the Princess of Wales?
Well, to a point he's been open, but we actually don't know what kind of cancer he's suffering. He's preferred to keep that private. I have no idea. And again, I mean, we all got absolutely ridiculously worked up about the fact that William missed one private engagement. You know, the poor guy, you know, I've no idea what was wrong. He doesn't want to tell us. He probably had an upset stomach or something that would make it very embarrassing to broadcast to the world, and something would make him not particularly want to stand up at that service. But as you see, he was out and about again on Thursday and on Friday at his synagogue, and then yesterday in Wales, celebrating St. David's Day. He's absolutely fine. So again, I think it's truly dangerous if we start reacting to what is written on Twitter or X or whatever it's called. It's absurd to do so. We need proper, accurate journalism here, and we must hold on to those standards.
Jenny, are you worried about the size of the monarchy? Because, of course, His Majesty the King was absolutely clear, as Prince of Wales, that he wanted a slimmed-down monarchy, that he wanted a set of working royals that was smaller than perhaps we were used to. But is that becoming an issue? You know, when you've got His Majesty the King taking a step back from public duties, and, of course, the Princess of Wales, who was doing a lot, you know, before Christmas, really actually picking up at quite a pace.
Oh, yes, she really, Camilla has stepped up to the mark, absolutely. She is taking on a great deal of the duties that the Princess of Wales would have done and that the King would have done. Yeah, I mean...
Oh, we've just lost Jenny there. Jenny, the camera's gone rogue. The camera's gone rogue.
Failure there. Oh, goodness. Oh, sorry.
No, don't worry, Jenny. A bit of excitement.
Camilla has absolutely stepped up to the mark, and the royal family has slimmed down naturally in size, and so Charles has got his wish, if you like. But I think we have to think that in Europe, for example, there are very many fewer working royals. We have 11 at the moment working. Some of them are getting on in age, it has to be said. But in the Netherlands, for example, and in Norway, there are only 7, and in Luxembourg, there are only 4. So the natural way of monarchies in Europe is to be slimmed down, and I think we are heading in the same way. We must get used to it.
So in a word, then, is it time to bring back Prince Harry, dare I say?
That's not going to happen. Even if Harry were willing, and again, we have nothing to back up the rumours and reports that he might be willing, William would absolutely not want that to happen. And why should he? William has been loyal. William has been steadfast. Harry is doing his thing. I wish him well. I hope he's happy. But you can't just step back in. That's just not going to happen.
I think people are just doing it for fun. I think they just enjoy there being a conspiracy.
Yeah.
So thank you very much, Jenny. Lots more to come on the show today. But first, let's get the news headlines with Sam Francis.
Good morning from the GB newsroom. Let's take a look at the headlines at just after 11:30. More pro-Palestine protests are planned this weekend following Rishi Sunak's warning last night that Islamist extremists and far-right groups are, he says, spreading poison and trying to tear us apart. In that speech delivered from Downing Street, he called for the nation to unite, highlighting the rise in extremist disruption, intimidation, threats and planned acts of violence. It followed George Galloway's controversial win in the Rochdale by-election earlier this week, which the Prime Minister described as beyond alarming. Organisers of those protests this weekend have now responded to the Prime Minister's pledge to back stronger police action, suggesting he expels some senior MPs from the party. It's after Rishi Sunak pledged to support the robust policing of demonstrations, particularly pro-Palestinian marches. The Metropolitan Police have in the past said that showing support for a terror group is a criminal offence, adding that the right to protest comes with a responsibility to act within the law. Several local marches are planned today and tomorrow before another national demonstration in London on the 9th of March. A manhunt is now underway after 3 people were injured in a shooting in an area of London popular with bars and restaurants. The shots were fired by assailants on a moped as they were being pursued by police in Clapham, South London. At around 5 o'clock last night, 2 people, we understand, suffered shotgun pellet injuries as they were drinking at a nearby pub. A 3rd person was also injured by the moped itself. Police say the injuries are not, though, life-threatening. Those are the headlines for now. For more, you can sign up to GB News Alerts by scanning the QR code on your screen or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
(2024), a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
Headliners. Tomorrow's papers tonight. Every night from 11 p.m.
Is a debate on gender really a far-right issue?
Far right. I'm so bored of that phrase, you know what I mean? Like, anyone who talks about... anyone who acknowledges that there are 2 sexes is suddenly far right, because that's what Hitler and Mussolini were all about. This question from Shirley is, of course, about Labour. They've been accused of being undemocratic because they pressured a pub into cancelling a debate, and this debate features Kelly J. Keane, who's been on this show a couple of times, and she's a campaigner, and she was just on the panel, and then they got a letter saying that they couldn't do it because Kelly J. Keane apparently attracts far-right groups. Now, they've tried this trick before, but because some awful, ghastly neo-Nazi types turned up near to an event that she was holding in Australia, they kind of tried to blame that on her and suggest that the two were the same thing. They weren't. That was an opportunistic group turning up to... they're not... neo-Nazis aren't pro-feminist. They're not pro an event called Let Women Speak. That's just ridiculous.
New Zealand's TV blurred her touching her zip because they said that her touching her zip was a far-right dog whistle because she's making that symbol.
Yeah, but she wasn't making the symbol, she was just adjusting a zip.
Yeah,
and
also, this isn't a far-right symbol.
I mean, that was incredible because she obviously wasn't making that symbol anyway. She was just adjusting a top. But this New Zealand news channel blurred out the hand so that they could pretend that it was some horrible ghastly... Yeah. I mean, this is stuff, isn't it?
She's talked about having voted Labour in the past. She's so not far right.
But also,
I mean,
even if she were right-wing, which she
Yes.
isn't, why would they be banning a panel where there's a discussion about one of the most important issues of our day? What are Labour playing at here?
They're anti-democratic, aren't they? They're just kind of playing whack-a-mole with things they don't like. I think maybe I'll write to the pub and say I do want to see Kelly J. Keane there.
Yeah, but they won't listen to you
Well,
if
no,
you say
they
that,
won't.
will they?
They
Because
won't.
you've got the unfashionable opinion, Chris.
Well, I'm the unfashionable workplace.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQ's Live here on GB News. Every Wednesday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions when Rishi Sunak and Sir Keir Starmer go head-to-head in the House of Commons.
We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQ's Live here on GB News, Britain's election channel.
Welcome back to Saturday Morning Live. It's now time for your weekly dose of showbiz. And we're delighted to have showbiz journalist Stephanie Tecci with us. Thank you, Stephanie.
Good morning, guys.
So, now I don't know very much about showbiz.
Yeah.
I am totally in your hands here. The Brits.
The Brit Awards, it's the biggest night on the calendar for music. You know, we have the Grammys, we have all those other music shows, but this is pure British entertainment tonight. Last year, there was a big furore because they've got rid of the gendered categories and they've gone gender neutral, which all award shows are doing at the moment.
Yeah.
And what tends to happen is women tend to suffer in these awards, like it did last year, because it was an all-male category for the Artist of the Year. This year, they've tried their hardest. 57% of the nominations go to women. Tonight, if you watch, you're going to be seeing one singer, Ray. She's up for an incredible 7 nominations. She's already won Songwriter of the Year, so I think it's going to be her night tonight. There's other people like Kylie Minogue. She's going to be taken to the stage, and she's also going to be receiving a Global Icon Award.
Well, yes, I love Kylie Minogue, but do you know, I think actually another Australian pop star needs to be recognised, and that's our very own Peter Andre.
Oh, of course.
Where's his
Of course. Come on, Brits. Wake up.
Mysterious girl, we need an honour. Do you know what? I actually worry about the way in which... You're right to mention that it's women that lose out, but this seems to be happening across the piece, doesn't it? This is what all of this diversity and inclusion stuff actually means. It means the exclusion of women.
Well, this is the problem, because I don't think the Brits are ever going to go back to doing gender categories, but, you know, this year, for the Artist of the Year, they've increased their amount of nominations to 10 artists. And I can't help but feel it feels a bit of tokenism, like we have the controversy this year, so this year we're going to make up for more women being nominated. And someone like Adele, when she won before, she said, actually, I still want to be a woman and I still want to be referred to for a woman, and I'm all for gendered categories.
How meritocratic do you think, not just the Brits, but these sorts of award ceremonies are, and the music industry in general? Because now we're sort of living in an Instagram age where you have these influencers who put out music and so on. Yeah. And it's kind of ruled by the algorithm.
Yes, it is.
How much... Because, you know, I was looking through this list before. I recognised quite literally one of these nominees. Dua Lipa is the only one whose name I knew. Dave, who I found out is a rapper, not actually a comedy channel for boomers. So, you know, how much does this have to do with politics, with posturing, like you say, like trying to kind of like make up for last year's exclusionary nominations, that kind of
Well, it's all changed now, the music industry. Before, things used to be based on sales, but now social media kind of dictating the trends in the music industry. And then we've got the music labels as well. As with any of these Showbiz Awards things, it's all about the money labels and how much money they've put behind it. So I think it is a bit of a hard one. It becomes about social media and those labels
now,
as well.
As well as being a big Kylie Minogue fan, I'm also a big fan of Eurovision. Now, our act this year, Ollie Alexander, we've got the clip. Well, let's have a listen at what he will perform.
Won't you make me dizzy from your kisses? Will you take my hand and spin it round and round until the moment?
Alexander, that's dizzy, that's called, and it's making me feel
it's making
it's such a strange video. So you see,
I don't think we're going to win, Stephanie, are we?
I totally agree with you. I don't think we're going to win. You know, it's pure Euro trash, and I'm like, can we just get a good ballad going? You know, we had Sam Ryder, who done amazing, obviously, and I think it's been hard to follow up that success. Last year, we finished second to last with Molly May with I Wrote a Song.
Well,
and again,
she was tweeting about how much she hates this country. And Ollie Alexander has been sharing, what was it, signing some
Well, he
Gaza.
signed a petition agreeing that Israel is an apartheid regime. Sources have now come out and said that he's not going to be doing any further political comments about the Israel and Gaza war, but already Jewish groups have come out and said he should not be representing the UK. So it's hard, you know, if you're going to put yourself up for the Eurovision, you need to understand the newspapers and journalists, they're going to try to find a way to put you down, even though he is representing the UK. These are the things that can pin him down on the night.
But you know, Stephanie, so many of our viewers and listeners are emailing in saying things like, how hard would it be? We churn out #1 singles around the world internationally. Our music
We're
industry.
the country that created the Beatles.
It's our soft power, superpower. But actually, we can't find an artist to perform at Eurovision that actually likes the damn country.
Well, this is the problem, and I think you know, these labels, if you're going to pick an artist to represent the country, make sure that they are representing us and they're staying out of politics. Stick to the music and leave all your politics aside. And I think now for Ollie Alexander, he's a lovely guy, but I can imagine in the lead up to Eurovision, these are the kind of things that are going to be coming out against him.
I have to ask you, because our lovely producer sent us this list of nominees last night, and I thought, I'm going to go a little bit down the rabbit hole. Don't know who any of these artists are. And just going back to this Eurovision quickly, it's to me, and I'm, you know, same age as Justin Bieber. Not a boomer. I listen to these and watch these videos, and I think, this is so weird. What is going on? Because it's so strange. You see him sort of on this rotating chocolate cake, convulsing and wring. Why, like you say...
That's Ollie Alexander.
Yeah.
These people are on the internet trying to find chocolate cake.
Well, what really is going on? Because this is not good music, and these are not good videos.
Well, you know, I like to think we've got taste in music, Emma, but I think the problem is there's a new generation of music fans that are coming up, and, you know, before you be able to follow an artist in their career years and years, this is like the 15 minutes of fame generation, so they need to do things which is quite shocking, things which are going to capture their attention, you know, and it's just that
generation, isn't it? It's those tiny 1-minute clips, and I see Universal Music Group. They pulled their music off TikTok, and now the music industry are saying, "What am I going to do?"
And the artists don't last. They
don't. It's the changing of generations, I'm afraid. But you know, if they're going to sell records, the record labels are happy with that.
Well, Steph, we'll be watching and I'll be thinking of you and wondering what your take's going to be tomorrow.
I'll have all
Cheers
the gossip.
very much, Steph.
Thanks, guys.
Folks, still to come, we're finally going to meet the actors from that Willy Wonka experience. A world of pure imagination, or where dreams go to die. This is the Saturday Morning Live on GB News, Britain's news channel.
From 10 a.m. every Saturday, we want to make you think and we want to make you laugh.
So we will give you all the top stories.
Now we start with a story that has shocked the nation this week.
But we're also going to make it light and fun and bring some entertainment in to make your Saturday morning nice and restful.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Headliners. Tomorrow's papers tonight, every night from 11 p.m.
Welcome back to Headliners, and Paul, we're going to get straight into Monday's mail for some good old-fashioned, traditional male breastfeeding.
To answer the question, what is the latest woke hell, Josh? Row as hospitals say hormone-filled milk from trans women who were born male is just as good for a baby as the real thing. It's possible for men, if they pump themselves full of estrogen, to grow larger breast tissue, and they often do.
Or you just eat lots of burgers.
Exhibit A. And once you've done that, it is actually then possible to express or lactate
a liquid.
Okay. If to that liquid you then add another load of pills, medication, chemicals, whatever, that lactation juice can be fed to a baby.
We don't really... This is not for the sake of the baby. The baby has no benefits from this whatsoever. The studies are very weak on it. It's a bit worrying because, you know, when hospitals started indulging in homeopathy and having, the NHS had homeopathic hospitals, that was worrying because they're supposed to be a trusted authority. And before saying something like this, there should be an awful lot of study done.
I want to shame this hospital. This is
whether it's necessary.
University Hospital Sussex NHS Foundation Trust. That's who it is. And they have written one of the stupidest sentences I have read aloud in the 2 years that I've been privileged to do this show. It says, the term human milk is meant to be neutral and not gender biased.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
That's incredible.
Yep.
Oh, my God, we're laughing at you.
I mean, and as someone says here, babies are not props. And that's the scary thing. And when we're not focusing primarily on the health of a baby.
No, but the feeling of a person doing it rather than... It's a bit of an odd way to go, isn't it? So...
every Sunday from 11. Join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Don't forget to keep sending Darren and I your questions and about the topics of today's show, and we'll chat through them with our panel and guests.
Yes, let's have a quick look at what you've been saying. Now, Scott has written in, and Scott's talking about Eurovision, which, as I mentioned, I'm a big fan of. But Scott says, look, we could have Elvis singing for the United Kingdom and we would still end up with Neil Poit. I think that you may be right. Is there a bit of anti-British sentiment at Eurovision? You betcha. Emma, you had an email that you loved.
Glenn has a special place in my heart. He says, I'm 70 years old now. If I'm lucky, I might have another 20 or so years left. I dread to think what the UK will look like in 20 years. But worst of all, I fear for my children and my grandchildren. What kind of country, world, will they experience? Certainly, it will be nothing at all like the one when I was growing up. And you know what, Glenn? Over the last couple of days, I've been thinking exactly the same thing, and I'm only 30. So I think you're absolutely hitting the nail on the head there.
So whilst I agree, I think if we in this country allow the lights of freedom to flicker out, then who else is going to actually light them again? You know, that's as serious as I take it.
Well, I mean, things are changing so rapidly, even now, that...
We mustn't stop, we mustn't stop. Now, from freedom to fabulous, up next on GB News, it's Dawn Neeson. Dawn, what have you got?
I wonder where you were going with that one. It's like,
beautiful.
What else begins with F that he could possibly use? Fabulous, I'll take. Thank you very much. Got a cracking show coming up. We've got a brilliant, a great Kate Middleton exclusive.
Oh.
Can't tell you any more. You'll have to watch and see. Well, I mean, where is she? What's she doing? Find out. Also, Joey Halliwell, Stroke Corner.
Yeah.
What should she do next?
What did you make of those text messages?
If it was my husband, he'd be walking with a very high-pitched voice, put it that way.
Yeah.
And he's quite rich, isn't he, Mr. Horner?
Well, yes.
So, you know, I might be on the phone to my lawyer a little bit. And also, George Galloway, of course, how can we avoid him? Is he the cat that's got the cream? Or just an alley cat?
Wow.
Lots of coming. I've interviewed George Galloway.
Have you?
Yes.
Not with a saucer of milk.
Not with. No. There was no licking going on. Don't worry.
Well, Dawn, we can't wait. See you shortly. See you shortly. Have a good show. Right, folks. Now it's time for the story of the week. If you've ever watched the classic film Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and thought, well, mind you, this looks like fun, you might want to reconsider.
There were stunning scenes in Scotland this week as 850 ticket holders coughed up £35 per person for their own golden ticket to Willy Wonka's chocolate experience. They were expecting fun and chocolate-themed treats, but it turns out that disappointment was the only thing on the menu.
Yes, where dreams become reality is how this event was advertised. But according to parental feedback, it's actually where dreams went to die. One parent even wrote on Facebook, sold a dream and delivered a nightmare.
To get to the bottom of this dark chocolate experience, we're joined by 3 of the actors hired to participate in the event. Mr. Willy Wonka himself, Michael Archibald, and an Oompa Loompa, Kirsty Patterson. Thank you both for joining us.
Now, Kirsty, I have to come to you first. I mean, you just looked like you were having the worst time of your life in that picture. I mean, did you enjoy it?
To be honest with you, no, I didn't. I didn't enjoy it. No, it was the worst job I think I've ever done in my life. The only reason why I kind of stood up and did it was for the kids and the parents, and I can vouch that for the other actors involved as well. It really, really was See, when they took the picture, the picture's exactly how I felt in that moment. Exactly. It was awful.
I mean, how was it sold to you as an actor, right? How did they get you involved in the project?
So, when they approached us, they said it was going to be like this big event, and I looked at like how much they were charging and how much we were getting paid for it, because it was quite well paid. We were getting paid for it, and then you kind of put the two and two together, like this is going to be an amazing production, and you know, maybe I will get more work out of this. But no, it was just a shambles. The only reason why I didn't walk off was purely for the kids and the families and the other actors, to be honest with you.
Michael, what do you think of all the publicity? Because this has been, I mean, I'm obsessed with this story and it's been turned into memes across social media all week. Do you feel a little bit sort of scammed by it, or do you see the funny side?
I definitely see the funny side of it, but what I find even funnier are the people trying to be like, oh, this isn't the real Willy Wonka, there was only one of those, and everyone's been saying about how there were 3 in total, so it's a bit funny, really, but honestly, the publicity I wasn't expecting. This was my first gig. I just wanted to, you know, make a quick buck. I'm a student, and I've been living on my own since I was 17.
Oh, no, I don't think anyone begrudges you that, but if you look at these scenes that we've got on screen right now, just for our radio listeners, and it looks like an empty warehouse, you know, it looks more... I could have more fun in IKEA.
What was going through your mind, Kirsty, when you first turned up and saw the state of it?
Right, so I'll explain my thought process. So when we turned up on the Friday, we got the script on the Friday, and I just thought, right, it was clearly generated by AI.
It's terrifying.
No, the whole thing is just wild. And I looked around, and it was like really, really, everything was just, it was just like sheets of things, and really, really, really bad kind of random bits of mushrooms, and it was just awful, right? And I just kind of thought, well, they must be working throughout the night. They can do a lot of lights, and they're just going to completely change this round. It's when I turned up on the Saturday morning, that's when I realised, right, this is not going to end well at all. This is going to end well. And now it's like the story of the...
So have you two become friends then because of this?
Yeah, I'd say we have, Michael.
Yeah. So, like, it's created bonds for life. I mean, you'll never forget this moment. You've gone more viral than I think Britney Spears ever could. And she shaved her head.
I know. Do you know the funny thing about it is, I didn't even put myself out in this exposure, and I've got this exposure. I think that is just the wild thing about it.
Now, I have to ask you, Michael. So, for our viewers, we just saw that masked character there on screen. That character is called the Unknown, and it's not from Willy Wonka. It was generated by AI.
Yeah.
And we can confirm it isn't Kate Middleton, despite the conspiracy theories on X. So, what did you think when you discovered that this was all sort of conjured from AI, that they were relying so much on AI? Did you think this is a little bit weird from the start?
So I'm an artist, and we have to deal with this whole AI stuff all the time. So it was honestly incredibly interesting, because on the day, right, Billy's pitching to us all of this, and he's like, I thought about this for a really long time. And in reality, it was just, I typed in a couple of words into a generator, and there we go. And funnily enough, in the actors chat, it was Kirsty and I really going into this AI stuff. We were like, what is going on? Because we were both like sharing these photos from the websites, and we were like, this is absolutely ridiculous.
What is your message from the two of you then to those who actually paid that 35 quid for a ticket and who feel mightily let down, shall we say, by the experience that they had?
I feel, honestly, I do feel really awful, especially at a cost of living crisis right now. And it's disgusting. It's been like hundreds of pounds people have paid. This is just not like small amounts of money for people. So
All right. Well, on that note...
Honestly, I really, really feel for them. And I really, really just hope we can all come to an end money-wise with this.
It's true. Well, best of luck to both of you. Kirsty and Michael there, thank you very much for joining us from home on Saturday Morning Live today. Don't go anywhere, as we said earlier. Dawn Neeson is up next. Ellie and Pete will see you at the same time next week.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Greg Dewhurst and welcome to your latest GB News weather. We've got areas of rain, sleet and snow pushing northwards today. Quite a cold feeling day, some frost and fog tonight. And that's all courtesy of this area of low pressure. Cold air associated with this, but it does start to ease as we go through towards the end of the weekend, meaning drier weather on the way. For the rest of this afternoon, outbreaks of rain, sleet and snow pushing northwards across England and Wales, particularly over the higher ground. We could see a covering. Showers across Northern Ireland, some brighter skies for Scotland, and then wet and windy weather across northern Scotland. Some snow here too. Quite a cold feeling day, 4, 5, 6 degrees for many, 7 or 8 degrees in the far south in any sunny spells. Through this evening time, this area of rain, sleet and snow continues to push its way northwards. Elsewhere, it starts to become drier. Still some coastal showers, but inland, under light winds, we could see some mist and fog patches developing, turning quite dense by the end of the night. Some icy stretches too, as temperatures fall close to, if not below freezing, -2 to -4 in the countryside. So a cold, icy start to Sunday morning. Some dense fog patches take their time to slowly lift and break as we move through the day. But overall, tomorrow it should be drier and brighter, some sunny spells. This weather front nearby could give some thicker cloud, patchy rain along some eastern coast, a few showers in the west. Temperatures near average for the time of year. See you soon.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg and this is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Sir Jacob Rees-Mogg's State of the Nation, Monday to Thursday from 8 p.m.
You're now in exile. I imagine it wouldn't be safe for you to go back to Russia. Can I ask you if you feel safe personally, and what do you think can be done to remove Putin, or is he going to be there for as long as he wants?
I think that is, of course, fundamental question. It is there should be pressure inside Russia and outside. Inside Russia right now, it's impossible because Putin put all leaders in jail and some of us just abroad. You know, just 2 were already killed. Mr. Nemtsov, Boris Nemtsov, my friend, my collaborator on my party, was killed on the walls on Kremlin. Alexei Navalny was killed in jail and in the camp. And that is, the people live in fear to identify themselves as protesters, to identify themselves as against Putin's regime, etc. That's why today there is no chance for opposition to rise inside Russia. But outside, of course, this war against Ukraine, that is the fundamental issue for all foreign leaders. And in fact, just support of Ukraine and not to let Putin to destroy Ukraine, to defeat Ukraine. That is an important issue because just Ukraine, that's not just in Ukraine, war in Ukraine. Ukraine just fighting for their territorial integrity, but fighting for the whole European countries because after Ukraine, other countries could appear, other subject of aggression could be, and Putin easily could try to test Article 5 of NATO Charter. It could be one of the small countries of Baltic states.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From 10 a.m. every Saturday, we want to make you think and we want to make you laugh.
So we will give you all the top stories.
Now we start with a story that has shocked the nation this week.
But we're also going to make it light and fun and bring some entertainment in to make your Saturday morning nice and restful.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello, good afternoon and welcome to GB News Saturday. Hope you're having a smashing weekend. I'm Dawn Neeson and for the next 3 hours we're keeping you company on TV, online and on digital radio. Keeping you up to date on all the stories that really matter to you. Coming up this hour, is democracy